What's going on, guys? So in today's video, I'm going to talk about the new MacBook Pro 14-inch. Now, this is the base model that starts at $2,000. I'll talk about the overall machine first, leave the specs for the tail end of the video, and then I'll give my final thoughts on if you should buy this or not, and whether I'm going to keep this device. Okay, so let's just get right into it. So this is the best MacBook Pro, period. Actually, it's the best MacBook, period. Obviously, the 16-inch is a better package overall, but this is the best laptop Apple has ever put out, ever. So let's go around the laptop first. So on one side, we have MagSafe, and trust me, it's the MagSafe you know and love from back in the day. It has two USB-C ports that work as Thunderbolt 4 and a headphone jack. So before I move to the other side of the device, I want to talk about the fast charging that Apple is quoting for these laptops. So you can charge through MagSafe or USB-C. Primarily, I charge through USB-C. If you want to fast charge, you have to pay for the extra power adapter that's like 96 watts. It's an extra $20, but if you elect to get the upgraded M1 processor, you get the 96 watt power adapter for free. Moving on to the other side, we have an HDMI port, which I found much more useful than I thought. We have an SD card slot, which is more useless than I thought, and another USB-C port that works as Thunderbolt 4. Overall, the ports that Apple put on here aren't outstanding, but they aren't exactly terrible either. I think for most people, they're gonna find a use case for all the ports here. Now, unfortunately, there is no facial recognition, but we do have a fingerprint sensor, famously named Touch ID in the Apple ecosystem. But now that I'm already talking about the notch, or not the notch, the facial recognition that should be on this laptop, I want to talk about the biggest upgrade to the Pro, which is the display. Now, the best way that I can describe this display is just imagine the $5,000 Pro XDR display that Apple has, and they just shrunk it down and put it on the MacBook Pro. That's the best way that I can describe it. If you've never seen the XDR display in person, I mean, it's probably hard to see that thing in person regardless of who you are, but just imagine it. This is the XDR display, essentially on a smaller scale. And it's good that Apple is giving us that type of display for consumers. And it just feels like every time I open up this laptop, it has a certain charm to it because it's incredibly sharp, incredibly vibrant, and definitely gives it a more modern look with the pushed out bezels. Now, going back to the notch, it overall just stopped bothering me about 30 minutes after my unboxing because my brain just kind of forgets that it's there. And if I'm trying to focus on something on the laptop, I usually full screen my window and the notch just goes away. My laptop is docked and closed most of the time, so the notch isn't that big of an issue for me. It's powered by mini LEDs, so it gets extremely bright when not only viewing HDR content, but regular content as well. And this is one of the nicest displays on a laptop, bar none, and it's what separates this laptop from previous generations. And not only did Apple give us a better display in terms of what it looks like, but they also added ProMotion as well. So it's dynamically changing from 120 Hertz and lowering itself. So it's the same technology that is on the new iPhone 13 Pro models and the iPad Pros. And it just makes macOS that much more satisfying to use. Now let's go over to build quality, where Apple once again has been class leading, I would say, for over a decade now. So some of the aesthetic changes you might notice is that the MacBook logo is gone from the bottom underneath of the display. And I think it's just because Apple believes in their logo so much that people just know what you're using based off the Apple logo. I kind of prefer this look without the Apple, or I should say the MacBook Pro down here. I'm hoping that they do the same thing for the MacBook Air because it just overall gives the laptop a more modern look. If you do miss the name though, don't worry because they embossed it on the bottom, even though you're probably never going to look at the bottom unless there's a problem with your laptop. The overall design of the MacBook Pro has not changed so much because it's kind of surprising that, you know, with these new chips, and Apple's always been about being thinner and lighter, the new MacBook Pros are actually thicker and heavier. And I completely forgot to mention that this is a 14-inch laptop, which is new for Apple as well. So in terms of build quality, MacBooks, speaking on the exterior are built to last, and this new 14-inch is no exception. So let's talk about another part where Apple is finally excelling at once again, which is the keyboard and, as always, their trackpad. I'll start off with the trackpad first because not much has really changed here. It's pretty much the same Magic Trackpad built into their laptops for the past decade. The keyboard might appear different, but I mean, it is different. The touch bar is no longer here, which I'm personally a fan of just because I just think it needed the kinks worked out, but we have a full-size function row key with a dedicated spotlight, dictation, and do not disturb buttons. There's also a dedicated emoji button as well, which is pretty nice touch. The coined Magic keyboard is pretty much the same as the other Magic keyboards on their other MacBooks. And after using, or I should say bouncing between the MacBook Air, from my experience, I can't really tell a difference other than the plate around the back of the keyboard is black. I think it accents the silver really well, not so much when the device is space gray. But the keyboard and trackpad you know and love are still here with subtle improvements. So moving on to the microphone and camera, the microphones on this machine are absolutely insane. The camera, not so much, but it is definitely an improvement from previous generations. After I showed the quick video test, I'll let you guys hear the speakers as well, because the speakers, once again, class leading again from Apple.
Our goal is we want users to watch more and click less, said Goodrow. This is better for users because it takes less clicking to get the video you want to watch. The machine learning system now trained the recommender to recognize and reward videos that won people's time. It worked, but the transition period proved excruciating. If you're curious about what I'm reading, it's a MIT Press Essential Knowledge series, and this is on recommendation engines. But let me know how the microphone sounds. Maybe I should do Audible on the side.
So now I want to touch on battery life. Now, the battery life on these machines are phenomenal, probably better than most Windows laptops you'll get. If you're doing basic tasks, it's probably going to be even at most, and it'll last you a day easily. But like most professionals using their machines for their intended purpose, you're gonna get probably 4 to 5 hours, which honestly isn't too bad given the performance that you're getting. Now it's time to get a little nerdy. Actually, not that nerdy because I'm just gonna be talking about the specs here. It comes standard with 16 gigabytes of RAM and 512 gigabytes of storage, which isn't horrible, but it would have been nice to see Apple give us 1 terabyte as a standard, especially at this price point. In regards to M1 Pro and M1 Max, for most people, the M1 Max is overkill. Even the M1 Pro is overkill. When it came to rendering a video in Final Cut Pro, the M1 Pro exported a 15-minute 4K video that I uploaded to YouTube previously about 25 seconds faster than my base model M1 Air with half the GPU cores. I should mention that the M1 Air is selling for as low as $800 now. So double the price, 25 seconds is not that much better, because what, that'd be $1,200 difference? It's not worth it. I will say though that the M1 Pro fits the MacBook Pro name perfectly. I feel as though the M1 Max might have came out too soon, or it's honestly more for people who do more memory intensive tasks like data simulation or calculations or architecture software. Architecture software is what I was trying to say. So the question is, should you buy it, and what am I personally going to do? I'm going to answer the second question first. Now, personally, this machine is fantastic, and it quite literally checks all the boxes for what I want out of a laptop. The performance is there, it's a whisper quiet, the ports are great, the display is stunning, the keyboard is amazing to type on, the trackpad is still one of my favorites on a laptop, the speakers sound fantastic, everything just comes together really well, except for one thing, and that is price. Despite how fantastic this machine is, $2,000 starting price is a lot of money, even though the base model can do pretty much whatever I throw at it. I usually calculate things by how many hours I have to work to pay it off. So when I worked at my bum job doing minimum wage for $7.25, I would rather not eat out for lunch just because it would be like an hour and a half of working in order to pay that off. Not to mention taxes on top of it, so it's probably 2 hours really. Now, to be completely honest, I don't think Apple's intended target audience for these new MacBook Pros are for entry-level people. These are some serious, real, professional grade machines. The question I should answer for you is, should you buy it? And my answer is, for my audience, no. You should not buy this laptop. Even if you're coming from a 2011 or 2012 MacBook Pro, my answer is still no. You should not buy this machine. These MacBook Pros are not the MacBooks you knew from back in the day, even a year ago. These are completely different beasts. You might say, well, there's MagSafe, and I want to have MagSafe because that's what I grew up on. And I'm here to tell you that you should not pay an extra $1,200 just for MagSafe. The MacBook Air with the M1 will probably obliterate any laptop you used in the past decade. But hey, like I said, if you have $2,000 to shell out, be my guest. Be Apple's guest, matter of fact. But for me personally, $2,000 is too big of a pill to swallow. Can't keep it. And plus, the MacBook Air is a perfectly fine machine for me. Once Apple kind of works out the kinks for what they want in this transitional period, maybe I'll consider upgrading, but I don't care how rich. Even if I'm a multi-billionaire, $2,000 is still a lot of money to me. But not a billionaire. I'm like, not even a millionaire. I'm broke. All right, hopefully you guys enjoyed my review of the MacBook Pro 14-inch. Let me know if you have any questions down below. The 16-inch with the M1 Max 32 GPU cores is coming soon. Some filler content as well. I appreciate every sub, like, and comment. And as always, guys, much love. Really a phenomenal machine. Phenomenal machine. You gotta do a little spin. This is really an incredible device, guys. MacBook Pro 14. Wish it was $1,400 though. Cause why is this thing $2 grand? I don't know, but Apple's making bank.